In 2021, 120 world leaders gathered in Scotland to discuss humanity's response to the climate crisis and made promises to keep the 1.5 degrees limit alive. Amongst all the world leaders present, there was one party most probably overlooked: JBS. If you haven't heard of the company, you wouldn't be alone, though chances are they're in your fridge. JBS is a Brazilian company and the largest global producer of beef, chicken, and lamb. Judging by annual sales figures, it's second only to Nestlé, with an annual revenue of $50 billion. But its growth has not been free from controversy. JBS has found itself tied up in corruption scandals, been fined for violating Amazon rainforest protection laws, and condemned for selling meat contaminated with salmonella. And more than 14% of global emissions flow from the farming of animals, and in 2018 alone, the meat industry emitted as much CO2 as 370 million cars. And yet, just months before COP26, JBS was the first global meat company to pledge to reach net zero by 2040. So, while JBS promises may look attractive, do they actually hold up? And what ESG issues should they focus on? First, JBS should focus on monitoring its supply chain immediately. JBS openly admits to contributing to illegal deforestation of the Amazon rainforest, which it commits to eliminate by 2025, and deforestation in general by 2035. This is too late. In fact, it is 11 years late. JBS already entered an agreement with Greenpeace in 2009, where it promised to eliminate illegal deforestation, including by its indirect suppliers, within 2 years. Even after being fined in 2017 for sourcing its cattle from illegally deforested areas in Brazil, it continues the practice of cattle laundering. This involves raising animals on an illegally deforested plot of land, which are then moved to a compliant farm and sold on to JBS. While JBS monitors the latter farms, it does not monitor the former, its indirect suppliers, and refuses to disclose how many of its cattle came from indirect suppliers. Yet, the Amazon is nearing an irreversible tipping point, and the EU recently proposed regulation which aims to ban commodities involving deforestation. So, JBS should implement preventative measures now rather than waiting another 14 years. Second, we suggest that JBS focuses on and invests in truly 100% renewable energy. JBS pledges to power all its facilities around the world with 100% renewable energy by 2040. In its 2020 sustainability report, JBS classifies methane gas captured from giant manure lagoons as renewable. However, the American Food and Water Watch filed a complaint to the FTC rebuking the categorization of factory farm gas as renewable and calling it quintessential greenwashing, as it is associated with water and air pollution. So ultimately, calling biogas renewable only distracts from focusing on truly clean energy sources like solar and wind. Third, we suggest that JBS increase its investment in research and development to reduce its carbon footprint. For example, cattle feed additives can reduce methane emissions by over 50%, and basalt dust sprinkled on soil can absorb up to 2 billion tons of CO2 yearly. Additionally, JBS should integrate agroforestry into its farming practices, growing rows of trees in grazing fields, and using smaller, well-managed pastures. Not only would this signal a move away from the polluting concentrated farming operations, but the firm could also benefit from national grants, such as the UK Forestry Grant Scheme or the Woodland Carbon Code. Despite the cost of initial investment, an estimated £720 million, the trade-off is that banks are now more willing to lend to ESG-compliant companies. So, why should firms invest more money into this aside from the ethical factors? Around 1,400 academic studies have found a positive relationship between ESG scores on the one hand and financial returns on the other, with compliant firms included in more investment funds. Nordea Asset Management Fund dropping JBS from its portfolio is a case in point. Rising public awareness and regulation are some factors explaining the increase in demand among almost all millennials, 95% of which are interested in sustainable investing. In short, the future is now, JBS.